As Americans continue to struggle economically, the Biden administration decided to send Ukraine toxic, depleted uranium ammunition that's going to give Ukrainians cancer for generations to come. And this is right after the Biden administration approved a cluster bomb munitions not too long ago. But listen to me, you naive children. This is what protecting democracy looks like. I'm a very sophisticated news person. I'm here to tell you that in order to protect Ukraine, we must send them weapons that give their population cancer. Don't question me. A few other countries have depleted uranium ammunition. The United States is the only country that admitted to using them in conflict. That's why we know how dangerous depleted uranium ammunition is, because the United States used it in Iraq and the population is still suffering to this day. The crazy thing is the unhinged Biden administration still denies the dangers of using depleted uranium ammunition.
The CDC has stated that there is no evidence that the depleted uranium rounds cause cancer. The World Health Organization reports that there's been no increase of leukemia or other cancers and that have been established following any exposure to uranium or DU.
Despite the fact that cancer rates tripled in Iraq after our use of it. In 2015, the Department of Defense even promised to stop using depleted uranium ammunition. Then we used it in Syria anyway. The United States government complained that Ukraine is too casualty averse. Now they are sending them weapons that will give their people cancer. You must be a fool to believe the United States care about the Ukrainian people.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. Welcome back. Welcome back to Nick and Night. It's great to be back. And that clip, that's just another reason not to vote for Joe Biden. You have the modern progressive left that is soft on corruption, soft on war crimes, and soft on human rights. They're quite despicable when you think about it. Because you have people like Ro Khanna, who used to speak out against funding Nazis to Ukraine. We're going to get to him very soon. He was on breaking points, shilling for the Biden administration, explaining why we should support the Ukraine war forever, essentially. The modern progressive is an unhinged, violent neocon that is willing to do the bidding of Washington in order to climb the government ladder. They are enemies. I view them as oppositional as they view Republicans. We're going to get to this interview here soon. But you have Democrats, you have Biden, you have progressives that say we should fight this just war. Yeah, I know the United States lied about wars all the time, but I promise you guys, this is the just war that we are fighting right now. We need to protect the lives of Ukrainians by blocking peace deals whenever we can, by forcibly constricting Ukrainian citizens, forcing them to fight, wasting their lives at a counteroffensive, and giving their kids cancer for years to come. Do you guys know when the United States used depleted uranium ammunition in Iraq, that the cancer rate tripled? They still dealing with that to this day. Like, people pretend that we don't have fucking examples of depleted uranium. Let's see if I can find some stats. So think about what they're saying, fam. They said we must protect and save the Ukrainian people by subjecting them to cancer for years to come. We also gonna cluster bomb the shit out of their population. There are gonna be mines where kids gonna maim themselves, right? But we want to protect Ukraine. That is the message of the modern Bernie Sanders left. Now, let's see if I can find. I did a video. You guys see that video I did on the depleted uranium? I want to see if I can find that anti-war article about it. Here's Russia's response to that. Russia decries U.S. plan to send Ukraine depleted uranium rounds. And then the United States response to Russia, obviously speaking out on another act, another war crime by the Biden administration and the Zelensky regime. Freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. In order to fight for democracy, in order to fight for freedom, we must commit war crimes. We must doom the future Ukrainian population, the future generations. So this is Russia's response to this. I'm gonna see if I can find you guys some more responses to this. Wrap up our first story about the depleted uranium munitions that the Biden administration approved. Once again, they spoke out. The State Department spoke out against this in 2015, and then Trump used it in Syria anyway. You had all these people using Syria anyway. Like this, our government is lawless. They are criminals. I'm going to show you guys, and I'm going to break down how the United States they stole even more Iranian oil that was bound to China. You have the United States government that steals 80% of Syrian oil, fam. The government that people spend all their time defending. You're a duopolist. You're a Republican. You're a Democrat. You're a patriot. Meanwhile, our government is ran by pirates, war criminals, white-collar crimes, thugs of the highest order. They stole tons of Iranian oil, 80% of Syrian oil. Still Syrian wheat. Now they commit war crimes in Ukraine, selling them out to BlackRock, who's going to bankrupt the Ukrainian population forever now. We're building this. But you want to know who I have no problem with this? I want to show you guys this other. Look at this headline. Look at this unhinged shit. The response from the United States when it came to backlash for them using depleted uranium ammunition was essentially said, oh, if you have a problem with it, Russia can always leave Ukraine. They can pull their tanks. Now, there's only a few countries that have depleted uranium ammunition. The United States is, like as I mentioned earlier, one of the few countries that admitted to doing it. They also have operations where they used it before, right? Oh yeah, let me check the chat. What's popping, people? My bad. I don't got it running on Rumble, but it's all good. What's popping? Hope you guys enjoy Nick at Night. Let me do a chat check, and then I'll get to the Ro Khanna video. Ro Khanna being a clown, as always. I hope you guys enjoying those short videos. I've been trying to focus more on that because when we was removed on YouTube, when we got the strikes because we had the audacity to report on what people said, we didn't say anything. We just reported on what they said. I went to branch out and see what other opportunities was out there regarding like shorter videos, what these young kids be doing, the Instagram and the TikToks. I'm fucking boomer at heart. That shit is confusing, but give me a minute to talk about anything. I'm down. Big shout out to Midwestern Marks. And I'm gonna get to the video. Make sure you guys leave some super chats if you have anything you want me to respond to. So Ro Khanna and the modern progressives, we should view as 100% oppositional scumbag traitors. When I asked Marianne Williamson about Bernie, she felt spectacularly. Dr. Cornel West is willing to criticize Bernie on his weakness on imperialism in our conversation, but there's still shock in my language I use. There's still a lot of people that want to hold back on the level of betrayal, what they have become. You guys realize that Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, AOC, and Squad, and this is not hyperbole. It is not hyperbole to say they are an enemy of human rights, fam. They are an enemy of human rights. They are weak on corruption, and they are enabling war crimes, and they are funding, and they are essentially Nazi collaborators. We explained this before. They're helping the neo-Nazis in Ukraine, the Banderites, achieve their objective of waging war against Russia. Now, Ro Khanna goes on breaking points, and he's going to discuss his support. Now, I told you guys, as the election continues, the people who continue to stay close to the Bernie Sanders left is going to expose themselves, because you guys have no idea. You guys have no idea how cringe this is going to get. Wait until Ro Khanna, Bernie Sanders, and AOC are forced to defend their Ukraine position against Matt Gaetz, against Donald Trump, or any member of the right wing who had critical analysis of Biden's Ukraine policy. They go on CNN, MSNBC, Anderson Cooper, and sound just like neocons, as you see here. So let's watch the video and let's get into it.
What's your thinking about this extra $25 billion?
I will support it. I know some of your viewers will not like the answer, but I'm always transparent. I mean, I think we have to support Ukraine while we also seek a just peace. And if we don't support them now, we're giving license for Putin to make more gains into Ukrainian territory. And I clearly believe that Putin was morally wrong and wrong under an international law. Now, if we can support Ukraine, and if they can continue to make some progress, it's been hard fought progress, but some progress, then at the same time, we should be engaging our allies, France, India, others, to see a just peace.
So let's say that
now war is just. Ignorance is strength. Freedom is slavery. Now, Ro Khanna gonna tell you how Dick Cheney lied to you about the Iraq War. I'll explain to you about the United States lied about Vietnam, Korea, and many other wars. But trust me, this war that we waging right now, this is the just war. How many Ukrainians have to die in order for you to accomplish your geopolitical objective of expanding NATO? Who cares? We are the good guys. We are the good guys, we promise. Hundreds of thousands dead Ukrainians. 50,000 dead in the first few weeks of the counteroffensive. Champion of human rights, Mr. Ro Khanna here, ladies and gentlemen.
it's $25 billion. The Ukrainians do with the $25 billion what they've done with the $100 billion, which is use it, make very little progress. When we're sitting here 9 months from now, and they ask for another $25 billion, what's the answer then? You give it to them again? We pursue peace? Like, what is the limiting principle on the amount of aid that we're willing to spend?
Now, see, that's a very important question that many progressives have failed and exposed how they are puppets in the military-industrial complex, where they say we are in it to win it. There have been people that estimate this war can drag out for years, but we're going to continue to pay for it as Ukrainians suffer. They continue to die. They continue to stabilize the geopolitical global working class. So Saiger asked the question here, when is it enough? How much war do we have to fund? Now, that leads me to the question of, if you're going to fund and throw hundreds of billions of dollars to the Ukrainians for a war that they can't win, just to drag this out and escalate more against Russia, now they increased their demands on Ukraine compared to what they had at the beginning of the war. In the beginning of the war, Russia didn't even care if Zelensky stayed in charge. Now they're like, he's got to go. Good thing changed. Things escalated. Putin gave a speech in last November, where he's talking about how the situation changed. Like, we have very simple asks. We just wanted the Donbass, Odessa, many states in the East to be independent. Zelensky can stay in charge. Don't advance NATO. Now they've seen the Zelensky regime sell their people out and become a full-fledged puppet of the West. Now they say, okay, Zelensky gotta go. They gotta fucking go. And that's their fault. Why will you allow so many Ukrainians to die without pursuing peace when you're gonna hit this end goal in the first place? So anyway, I want you guys see the response. I'll let you hear the question and now respond to it. There's a lot to say here.
Ukrainians do with the $25 billion what they've done with the $100 billion, which is use it, make very little progress. When we're sitting here 9 months from now, and they ask for another $25 billion, what's the answer then? You give it to them again? We pursue peace? Like, what is the limiting principle on the amount of aid that we're willing to send to Ukraine?
Well, look, everything is contextual.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say for the next 20 years we're going to be funding Ukraine.
He says everything contextual. What does that mean? That's nonsense. He's not going to say we're going to fund Ukraine forever. It's contextual. So I'm going to tell you guys what they've been doing for ever since the war began, I should say. whenever Ukraine is losing, which is 95% of the war, they said, well, we can't negotiate now. We can't stop spending to Ukraine now because that will solidify Russian gains. That will reward Putin for his military aggression if we negotiate and we stop funding Ukraine now. And then if Ukraine gets any gains, 1 kilometer of gains, one story of Russian soldiers being obliterated, they said, oh, we can't pursue peace now. We can't stop funding Ukraine now. They're winning. That will undercut all the work that the soldiers have done. You guys see how it's a win-win scenario? And Ro Khanna is going along with it? I'll let his answer play. Let me go back and I'll let his answer play.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say for the next 20 years we're going to be funding Ukraine. But the point is that certainly I think we have to fund them in this request. And then we've got to continue to make...
That's not answering the question, Ro. The question is, when does it end? We got to fund them for this request. Okay, when do we say no, Ro? When do we say no? God damn, I'm sorry.
Progress in trying to see how we get Russia out of the Donbass region and where they've violated sovereignty.
Like if we pull out, aid, let's say we don't pass said package.
And by the way, he said that Russia violated sovereignty. No, the United States violated the sovereignty of Odessa, the Donbass, and Eastern Ukraine, who wants to be part of Russia. The BBC did a documentary about this. I did many segments about this, showing old corporate media stories about this. There was referendums that was well established, well principled, right? Around 80% or so of Eastern Ukraine voted to be independent of the Ukrainian regime because the CIA helped fascists and neo-Nazis in Ukraine overthrow a democratically elected government in 2014. So after the United States teamed up with fascists and Nazis in Ukraine who wanted to destabilize the country to separate their influence from Russia, the people who are pro-Russia, which is around 45% of the population who speak the Russian language, they decided we want to be independent. And they asked Putin to invade earlier. They asked Putin to invade years ago. Liberate us. Putin said no. Putin tried everything he could in the lead up of the invasion. Then once every option was considered and expelled on the Russian side, they decided to invade. The Russia ask was very simple. They said, we want to guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO. And the West, in order to provoke Russia to war, they will do this thing where they say, oh, Ukraine should join NATO, just not right now. We got a road for Ukraine and NATO. Zelensky, do you think we should join NATO? Yeah, we should join NATO right now. And then they will ask the West, would Ukraine join NATO? Not yet, but they will. So then Putin and Russia look at this shit like, very simple ass that you guys not even remotely considering. So, especially as someone who lives in the imperial core, the United States, which essentially run NATO, I'm going to be critical of the United States' actions in Ukraine because we are the one who provoked the war. Yeah, social democrats, they'll say stuff like this. Well, you got to condemn the Russian invasion. Why? I'm asking the question, why? So I'm going to pose the question to them. What would happen if you had Iran, China, well, let's say China, Russia, Iran, they funded Nazis in Mexico that banned English. They banned English from Mexico. They had a violent campaign where they were expelling Americans in Mexico that was being financed by the KGB or the Chinese military. How would the United States respond in that situation? Everyone know that not only the United States would invade Mexico in that scenario, would they respond aggressively in that scenario, every other country would. Every other fucking country would. So if we know that every single country will respond the same way that Russia responding to United States, CIA, NATO, UK aggression, then why are we putting the onus on Russia for behaving the way every single state would behave? We should put the onus on the people that provoked the state that try and protect their sovereignty, fam. The Russian people who was invaded by the Nazis. They was invaded through Ukraine by Napoleon. So there is precedent of enemies of the Russian people using Ukraine as a way to damage and destroy the Russian people. So of course, that's a national security concern for the Russian people, which is why Putin, despite waging this war, has an 80% approval rating, because every Russian person knows someone who was killed by a Nazi in the 40s. It's generational trauma. So they see NATO encroachment, CIA funding, a Nazi in Ukraine, and they see this military operation to denazify Ukraine and just having Ukraine as a buffer state, which is very reasonable. And they support that, obviously. So as someone in the United States, what I'm going to do is call out our state, the people I'm responsible for provoking Russia and forcing them to behave as every single state will behave. You had China doing simple military drills in Cuba, and the United States freaked out. Don't forget that the United States considers the Western Hemisphere its backyard. The United States killed millions of people in South America because they had the audacity to choose a different economic model than them. Any country that had the audacity to have a socialist or communist revolution was slaughtered in genocide and killed. They killed millions. They killed in the most brutal way millions of Koreans, fam, because they had the audacity to follow Marxist-Leninism. But then you guys want to say, how dare Russia protect their backyard, protect their national sovereignty, as the United States is provoking China in the South China Sea. In the where? In the South China Sea. The United States all over the world. Imagine if you had military bases surrounding the United States. I wish I can find this picture. There was a picture someone sent me. It was a Photoshop of like Iranian bases, Russian bases, Chinese bases. I mean, like a ton of them surrounding the United States. It's like, imagine what would happen if military bases surrounded the United States like this. Damn, I think it was a few days ago since I retweeted. I really wish I saved that. It was a fantastic point. So I think you guys get what I'm saying. Let's get back to this debate.
They've violated sovereignty.
Like if we pull aid, let's say we don't pass said package, then actually a diplomatic solution looks a lot more likely. Now, of course, I'm not saying that's just, and if I were them, I would be furious as well. But we also have to consider our own interests here.
Well, the question is, what are they capable of doing, and what do they want as a just solution?
Yeah.
If they come to a conclusion that they themselves have had too many loss of lives and that they want some compromise that is short of a just peace, that's very different than us pulling aid and forcing their hand, which sets a horrible precedent, in my view, for China and Taiwan, for Russia continuing the action of aggression. I mean, Russia took Crimea, now they're taking Donbass. What's next? I mean, if we don't stand up and say, as a big power, you can't just take a little power or other country, then it undermines the rule of law in the international system.
The modern progressive sounds exactly like Mike Pence. That's exactly the talking points of Mike Pence and Chris Christie. And this is why I do Oppo research on the corporate media in their talking points, because I catch these progressives in 4K using the same talking points of the neocon establishment. The same exact talking point. For one, he's not even correctly framing the issue. Russia at no point went to take over Kyiv. They wanted an independent Odessa, Donbass, and Eastern Ukraine. And they wanted a demilitarized Azov neo-Nazi battalion in Ukraine, which the majority of the world will agree with, which Rokana agree with. I'm going to show you guys that here soon. Actually, I'll show you guys that now. Here's Rokana back in the day. White supremacy and neo-Nazism are unacceptable and have no place in our world. Ro Khanna, an outspoken critic of providing lethal aid to Ukraine, said in a statement to The Hill on Tuesday, "I am very pleased that the recently passed omnibus bill prevents the United States from providing arms and training assistance to neo-Nazis as our battalion fighting in Ukraine." So this is Ro Khanna's old position, fam. I have the... This is what the position of progressives used to be. And neocons used to fume at this. Now you have progressives that are being Nazi collaborators and helping whitewash the crimes of the Banderites. Congress has removed a ban on funding neo-Nazis from its year-end spending bill. Under pressure from the Pentagon, Congress has stripped its spending bill of an amendment that prevented funds from falling into the hands of the Ukrainian neo-fascist groups. But now it's okay to fund those people. That's the just cause, according to Ro Khanna. And Bernie Sanders and AOC and the entirety of the NATO left, which we should view as oppositional as we would view a Nazi collaborator, as Republican, a standard neocon. The same exact thing. These are the people that progressives are making their bet with. This person is a notorious propagandist for the Ukrainian military. This person called him the English-speaking spokesperson for the Ukrainian military. This is the least unhinged Ukrainian supporter. Listen to this Banderite garbage here.
Russia hates the truth that their obsessive focus on a Ukrainian volunteer is simply allowing the light of the Ukrainian nation's honesty to shine brightly. Next week, the teeth of the Russian devils will gnash ever harder, and their rabid mouths will foam in uncontrollable frenzy as the world will see a favorite Kremlin propagandist pay for their crimes.
What?
And this puppet of Putin is only the first. Russia's war criminal propagandists will all be hunted down, and justice will be served as we in Ukraine are led on this mission by faith in God, liberty, and complete liberation.
Nazi saying Nazi ass shit right here. She's a psychopath, but she's the English speaking spokesperson for the Ukrainian military. Like when I first saw this, I thought this was SNL. I thought this was a comedy skit. I thought this was a comedian wearing a wig doing a bit, but no, this is a real person, a real Ukrainian propagandist. That sounds like a rabid Nazi dog. So Gonzalo Lira is a journalist who was operating out of Ukraine, who was telling the truth about the Ukraine war and the fascist Ukrainian regime. You want to know what the Ukrainian regime did to Gonzalo Lira? They captured him, tortured him, and he's still missing to this day. His father is in shambles. Everyone that knows him is in shambles. It's an extremely sad story. Here she is, and the fascists in Ukraine bragging about it. And they say, not only are we going to torture and capture Gonzalo Lira, we're going after all the Russian propagandists. Meanwhile, people still deny the Ukrainian kill list. I think Max Blumenthal, Jimmy, George Galloway, pretty much everyone on the gray zone. There are a ton of people on that Ukrainian kill list, but we know they're serious now. Do you guys want to hear it again? This is the people that Ro Khanna is teaming up with. The Banderite regime. Now, regardless of the geopolitical scenario, I'm going to get ideological with you guys a bit. As a socialist, as a communist, I would be opposed to arming neo-Nazis in any scenario. They are mortal enemies. They are the enemies of socialists and communists. So no matter what your fucking excuse is, we are against it. Ro Khanna, Bernie Sanders, and Social Democrats are Nazi collaborators rubbing elbows with this psychopath and claiming that she's fighting a just war.
Russia hates the truth that their obsessive focus on a Ukrainian volunteer is simply allowing the light of the Ukrainian nation's honesty to shine brightly. Next week, the teeth of the Russian devils will gnash ever harder, and their rabid mouths will foam in uncontrollable frenzy as the world will see a favorite Kremlin propagandist pay for their crimes.
What the fuck?
And this puppet of Putin is only the first. Russia's war criminal propagandists will all be hunted down, and justice will be served.
They all will be hunted down. So the Ukraine fascist government banned socialist and communist opposition parties. They banned the free press. They banned the workers' ability to collectively bargain. And now they're saying that they're hunting down anyone who calls for peace. There was a BBC report, and I apologize, I forget their name. But there was a guy who was an ordinary establishment guy, who simply advocated, like, hey, how about we just call for peace because it's like this war not going anywhere. He wasn't advocating an anti-imperialist position. He simply said, maybe we should go for peace. Ukraine government called him a propagandist, also he's on the kill list. So anyone who calls for peace, this unhinged psychopath wants to hunt down and kill. And once again, I cannot emphasize enough, we've seen this person before. We did statements on this person before. I know of this person. She's a very famous Ukrainian social media spokesperson. This person calls her the English-speaking spokesperson for the Ukrainian military. I wanted to check that to see if that's her official title. I didn't hear that before. But she's a famous, well-known Banderite, this person. She has an audience. And she sounds like an unhinged fascist. So let's watch it one more time so I can emphasize the psychopaths that Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders are teaming up with.
Russia hates the truth that their obsessive focus on a Ukrainian volunteer is simply allowing the light of the Ukrainian nation's honesty to shine brightly. Next week, the teeth of the Russian devils will gnash ever harder, and their rabid mouths will foam in uncontrollable frenzy as the world will see a favorite Kremlin propagandist pay for their crimes. And this puppet of Putin is only the first. Russia's war criminal propagandists will all be hunted down, and justice will be served as we in Ukraine are led on this mission by faith in God, liberty, and complete liberation. Russia hates.
So, you know how social democrats, progressives, liberals pretend they're anti-gun, but what they really want to do is disarm black people and workers? The same people who pretend they want to end gun violence, they are okay with creating a black market boom of weapons, which the DHS even admits they are concerned about neo-Nazis taking their training, taking the weapons that the corrupt Ukrainian government is not keeping track of, and it's going to come back home, right back to us, fam. You have Nazis in South America, you have Nazis over Europe, Nazis in the the Americas, that volunteered to fight for the Banderite regime, and now they're going to bring those weapons home. There's already been reports of U.S. weapons that was supposed to go to Ukraine being found in terrorist cells in Africa. Many white supremacist groups already. So the same progressives and the same leftists that want to take your gun, take your Second Amendment right, in order to serve the police state in the capitalist class, they want to take your guns for gun safety as they fund guns and weapons to neo-Nazis in Ukraine and creating a black market boom so that fascists that you just heard can hunt us down. And they want us you guys want us to disarm as these fascists, these Nazis are about to come home? They about to come home with guns, but liberals like, hey, let's disarm. Hey, let's get rid of the guns. Get the fuck out of here. Liberals watching this right now, they're in shambles. RBN, under no circumstance, under this capitalist regime, do we give up our ammunition. That's our Marxist position. Sorry, liberals, we're probably in shambles right now. But we need to get to other stories. I still need to talk about Biden impeachment. So let me do a big shout out to Abiding with the super sticker as well. I can do some more super chats at the end of the show. A big shout out to Zoya's Love. Zoya's Life. What's poppin', fam? I need you at Nick and Night probably here soon, Zoya. Russia made back double what sanctions cost them already. once again, Zoya will tell you more than anybody. Zoya said this on the show. I'm not spoiling anything. But Zoya grew up in Odessa, Ukraine, in the Soviet Union. So she one of the people that debunks the Ukraine war because she's understand the facts, the history, the background. You have Matt Dustin, the Bernie Sanders left, that pretend that there's no cultural history between neo-Nazis, between Ukraine and Russia, but they've been, like, Ukraine as a new state, as a state, is very new. Like, the Russians and Ukraine have a long generational tie. Like, you have Ukrainians and Russians that will visit each other's families, cross the border all the time. And that's what made the neo-Nazis, the Banderites, upset. Because they viewed Russians as people who was conquered by the Mongols and have Asian genes that made their white bloodline impure. So they want to purge Russian people, which including banning the Russian language. What's poppin', Zoya? You know, I have much love, much respect for my friend Zoya. Help co-founder tend to manage with me. But I need to move on. I had a lot of receipts for this one. Let me start with this one. I want to get right into the impeachment story because I'm running short on time. But it's hilarious. And let me pull this up here. So we're moving on to Biden impeachment now. 2024 is going to be very interesting. You have Democrats that are melting down about this, having a panic attack over the Biden impeachment inquiry. And then you want to know the funniest thing? They were like, oh my God, how dare the Republicans do this? They're going to destroy our country with this divisive impeachment inquiry. Said the same people that is literally trying to throw their chief political rival in prison. The same people trying to throw their rival in prison. It's like, oh my God, how dare the Republicans impeach Trump? Now, I think Trump should be impeached for his war crimes, his corruption, right? Biden should be impeached for his war crimes, for the genocides, escalating World War III. I think him sending weapons to Taiwan alone is an impeachable offense because that's him violating the one China policy. There's so many reasons to impeach Biden. Them impeaching Biden on Hunter Biden is good because that's them holding them accountable on corruption. And you have Democrats that their strategy on this is so weak. They're caught up so off guard. They don't realize that they set a very dangerous precedent by going unhinged, constant Trump impeachment. So you guys realize the argument they are making against the Biden impeachment is to say that the Hunter Biden pay-to-play scheme was essentially an illusion. So the business interests that Hunter Biden had in Ukraine, the rubbing of shoulders, Biden texting with business interests of Hunter Biden, them meeting on planes and private flights, that was to give an illusion of corruption. They're not actually getting anything out of that. That is the argument they are making. The other argument they are making is that the Biden play-to-play corruption with Hunter Biden technically is not illegal. Technically, it's not illegal. Yeah, it's corrupt, but it's not illegal, so you guys can't impeach him. These people try to impeach Trump for stuff that wasn't technically illegal because impeachment is a political process. This is why liberals are panicking, because when you impeach Biden for corruption, even if the corruption isn't technically legal, you're exposing the right and the system that the Democrats approve of. So no matter if the impeachment is successful, no matter if Biden goes to jail, the point of having an impeachment inquiry is to expose the crimes with a trial, fam. And there's a ton of corruption. And liberals been getting blown the fuck away whenever they deny that there's evidence of this. I'm going to show you guys the Morning Joe Cope. If you watch Morning Joe, they were like, oh my God, it's crazy that Republicans are impeaching Republicans are impeaching Biden because they have no evidence. And this is to play well. It's not going to play well for the American people, even though polls show that most American people think that there's corruption between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. This is pure shambles. So their strategy is to pretend that there's nothing there, even though there's a ton of there. And this clip right here is exactly why Democrats are panicking? Because they're going to be forced into this debate with Republicans, and they're going to get destroyed, not because Republicans are anti-corruption crusaders, and because anyone could expose Joe Biden. Anyone who's a true oppositional party to Joe Biden, which the Bernie Sanders left is not, Marianne Williamson is not, you can expose his corruption. I still will never forget how Jordan Cheriton asked Marianne Williamson about Biden's corruption. Jordan, of all people, and Marianne Williamson was like, corruption? What are you talking about? I have disagreements on economics, but corruption? That's not Biden's Republican talking points. And then Jordan was looking like in absolute horror. Like, I cannot believe what you just said. Goddamn RBN about rip her to shred for this, which we did. But look at this video clip. This is who is this Republican fucking name? Let's see, what is his name? And not really that important, but let's see. This is Scott Perry. And let me know if you recognize the reporter he's arguing with. She sounded like a liberal I heard from on MSNBC. Listen to this.
Evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you?
Oh, I don't know.
McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering.
Meanwhile, the argument being made from Democrats and Morning Joe and this liberal reporter to smugly say, hey, you guys know there's no evidence. There's no evidence to this corruption. Yo, you're not reporting on the evidence, fam. There's a ton. There are text messages. There's a ton of documents of whistleblowers showing that there was a connection between Hunter Biden, his business associates, and Joe Biden directly. So then during the course of this election, you're going to have liberals that completely refuse to admit the corruption with Joe Biden, and they're going to get destroyed by fucking Republicans of all people. Look, so listen to this part again.
20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the vice president at the time on.
Now, I want you guys to hear her question again. Because look at how smugly she claims that there's no evidence, and then he proceeds to cook her alive. She's roast beef. She's done. So listen to her smugness.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you?
Oh, I don't know.
McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank account.
So when Republicans impeach Biden, it's political revenge. When Democrats try to throw Trump in prison while letting George W. Bush and John Bolton free, that's them just doing standard business, I guess. Who do Democrats think they're fooling? For real.
Counts, we can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the vice president at the time on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blind, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
Bro, she just got dismantled, fam. And then watch her come back with some weak liberal bullshit. I hope you guys can hear her, because I know it may be a little bit hard to hear.
I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
She's just like, no, there's not. People think this is political revenge. There's a ton of evidence that the mainstream media, MSNBC and CNN, refuse to report on regarding Hunter Biden. Glenn Greenwald did a fantastic piece exposing the whistleblower and a lot of evidence that the corporate media refused to cover, and that we called out here. Now watch, this guy about to step up. Excuse me, about to step up and cook her as well.
We're here reporting on it today.
I'm not sure how you know what the American people think, but here's what they might wonder. Actually, if you're a federal prosecutor, you would be asking yourself, how can there not have been an indictment for a FARA violation against Hunter Biden? How can there possibly, my understanding and discussions with staff have confirmed my impulse that this would be very much the basis of a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act investigation, given the circumstances that we know. The question is, it's funny, after we come out of the events that John Durham, for example, testified to our committees about how investigations proceeded through our investigative agencies without proper predication. It's not that you have to prove the case. It's not that you understand, to this point, there's not been a single subpoena to a Hunter Biden bank account or a Joe Biden bank account or any other Biden family member's bank account, because until an impeachment inquiry commences, that's not a jurisdictional possibility. Well, it would be stretching jurisdiction to do that. But there's ample predication at this point in time based on that very unusual set of circumstances, which is for no apparent payment for expertise or services rendered. Biden family members writ large received over $20 million.
That we know of.
It is very
that we
simple
know
for
of.
someone just to insist there's an absence of evidence. But if you can look in the face of that and contend that, that's, anyone has a right to their opinion. What they can't do is change the fact.
You guys see, just dismantle this reporter. So what liberals want us to believe is that Hunter Biden, with no experience, had all these business deals with Ukrainian energy companies, was put on energy boards, and he was just giving all this money with no services rendered. Oh, there's no evidence. That's why Democrats don't want an impeachment inquiry, because that would bring up evidence. That would show, that would educate the American people on what the mainstream media is not reporting on. That's why liberals in absolute shambles. And remember, once again, the argument of Democrats and liberals is that technically Joe Biden didn't do anything illegal. But once again, impeachment is not a legal process, it's a political process. So if it's exposed that there's massive pay-to-play schemes in the middle of an election showing Joe Biden's corruption, they're not going to sit well for Democrats with this stuff coming out. Meanwhile, on the other end, you guys are trying to prosecute Trump over classified documents and other bullshit. So this is Biden and his team being completely blindsided. Listen to this.
Former White House aides of yours who tried to warn you about the potential conflicts of interest.
Nobody warned me about a potential conflict of interest. Nobody warned me about that. And at the same time,
George Kent, the State Department official, testified that he raised it to you.
No, he
and your
didn't
staff,
say
to your
me.
staff.
He did not.
To your
say,
staff. I stand corrected.
Never heard that once.
To your staff, and your staff told him he has no bandwidth.
Well, my son was
family
dying.
members.
I guess that's why he said it, because my son was on his deathbed.
Former White.
Oh, his excuse is that his son died. my son Bo died. That's why we corrupt. So you guys realize that they're not even denying the corruption because there's so much evidence. At this point, they're saying, "Oh, Biden's a dumbass who didn't know it was illegal." Oh, technically, there's no there. There's nothing illegal wrong here because we all do it. Oh man, this is not going to play well. And once again, polls show that most Americans view that there's corruption here. And Morning Joe report on that fact in horror. And all this evidence and this fact that this was exposed corruption, which we are not soft on, unlike the Bernie Sanders left. You had Republicans, the people who are actually allowed to fight, who are demanding this. So Matt Gaetz, we don't got a lot of respect for this guy, but this guy fights for his constituency. Matt Gaetz forced a vote on Kevin McCarthy using the same strategy of forced a vote that was advocated by Jimmy Dore, RBN, and our friends and family, our community, led with forced a vote in order to get concessions for a speaker vote for Speaker Pelosi. the progressives, Bernie Sanders and the squad, many people thought that was a bad strategy. Meanwhile, you had Matt Gaetz, who forced a vote on Kevin McCarthy, and they got concessions, including the ability to call Kevin McCarthy for a recall vote at any time. They can call him a motion to dismiss him as speaker at any time if they feel like he's not doing the right thing. Not only that, they also forced him to promise to give impeachment. They got a decrease of military spending. They got a lot of concessions. A lot of stuff I don't agree with, like a lot of trickle-down economic bullshit, but they got concessions for them leaders, despite being a very small, quote-unquote, extreme minority in the Republican Party. The same thing we advocated Bernie Sanders and them do to the Democratic Party. So watch how Matt Gaetz speaks to Kevin McCarthy here, and this is why they got the impeachment inquiry. Because Matt Gaetz is, despite the fact, and I gotta explain this, despite the fact that Kevin McCarthy agreed to do the impeachment inquiry, Matt Gaetz and his faction of the Republican Party is still extremely upset because Kevin McCarthy didn't follow through on the other things that they promised. So imagine if AOC and the squad forced Nancy Pelosi to promise a floor vote with the ability to call your leadership into question if you don't accomplish that. Now, I'm spoiling it a lot here. I want you guys to watch the video, and I think you guys understand what I'm talking about.
On this very floor in January, the whole world witnessed a historic contest for House Speaker. I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role.
Bro, why is Matt Gaetz the one allowed to do this? Why can't we get Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the squad to say, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi a few years ago, you're out of compliance. You're abandoning the working class people. You're not proposing Medicare for all. You're out of compliance. Now we about to get your ass out of here. That is what Matt Gaetz is saying here. Like, this is insane. This is exactly what we wanted progressives to do. Listen.
Today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair.
Motion to vacate.
We have had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required.
Look, once again, whether we agree with Matt Gaetz or not, he said we had no vote on balanced budgets, no votes on term limits, and now because they did not get that vote, he is threatening to oust them as leader. This is exactly what we argued, what Jimmy Dore argued regarding force to vote. We get Nancy Pelosi to promise to have a Medicare for all floor vote, or she would not be Speaker of the House because she did not have the votes without the progressives. The same way that Kevin McCarthy did not have the vote without Matt Gaetz. So even if Speaker Pelosi declined to put Medicare for all for a floor vote, even if Joe Biden imposed staunch neoliberalism and the Democrats fought against progressives funding against their campaigns, then AOC and the progressives can say, hey, we call for a motion to vacate, and we're now going to oust you for speakership because that's what Matt Gaetz got by fighting. And AOC was critical of that. AOC said, oh, well, you're being disruptive. You're ruining your reputational situation in Congress, your reputation in Congress. AOC had nothing but disdain for this strategy that Matt Gaetz used that 100% worked. This is why there's a Trump impeachment. Matt Gaetz like, okay, you're doing the Trump impeachment. What about balanced budgets? What about term limits? Imagine the progressives wield this power. They won't. Only the Matt Gaetz extreme right are allowed to fight for their constituency, while the Bernie Sanders AOC left is here to cultivate a weak, cuck, beta fucking left. Listen to this motherfucker just drag Kevin McCarthy here, and then I got a video I'm gonna show you where Morning Joe sees this clip and they are in absolute shambles because their decorum and their institutions are failing by using tactics that the left advocated for. And I do 100% agree with term limits and age limits. I see a few chats in here. Like, imagine progressive thought like this. So anyway, let's listen to some more of this.
Pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair. We have had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes. As you promised, there has been insufficient accountability for the Biden crime family. And instead of cutting spending to raise the debt limit, you relied on budgetary gimmicks and rescissions so that you ultimately ended up serving as the valet to underwrite Biden's debt and advance his spending agenda. Mr. Speaker, you boasted in January that we would use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. But here we are 8 months later, and we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. That's how you know that the rushed and somewhat rattled performance you just saw from the speaker isn't real. At this point, during Democrat control over the House of Representatives, they had already brought in Don Jr. 3 times. And we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. Power of the subpoena and power of the purse. Only thing the 118th Congress is known for at this point is electing Kevin McCarthy speaker and underwriting Biden's debt. And unfortunately, there's only one of those things we can remediate at this time.
Oh,
Power
Jesus Christ. This man just dragged Kevin McCarthy. Dragged his boy. Once again, imagine an alternative reality where we wasn't sold out to historic fashion by AOC, Bernie, and the squad. Where AOC and Bernie and the squad was talking to Hakeem Jeffries like he's their bitch. The way that Matt Gaetz is talking to Kevin McCarthy like Kevin McCarthy is his bitch. Like we should. There's no reason for bullshit civility politics because what Matt Gaetz did worked. MSNBC and CNN, they watched this in horror. They are in shambles because they're like, oh my God, Kevin McCarthy has been influenced by the far right wing of his party because they are not holding back, unlike the weak beta cuck, Tom Hartman, Sam Cedar, AOC left. They want us to be like, oh no, the system, we got first past post. Oh, the system, we got asked. No, we need to be doing with this shit right here. And I want you guys to see Morning Joe reaction to this because they're in absolute shambles. Listen to this.
Kevin, you need to tell
Let me turn it up. There we go.
The case, and they can't make the case now. I can make a case, though, for Kevin McCarthy. And that case is, Kevin, you need to tell people to go to hell. If somebody ever said to me,
immediate total compliance, or we will remove you.
Let me just ask you, Mika, what if somebody ever said to me in any situation, at the gates of hell, if Satan said to me, immediate total compliance or what?
Yeah, we will remove you.
Yeah, or we will remove you. I would say, again, F, A, and F.
It is too.
Oh, it is not too early. It's like almost noon in London.
Okay.
That's right.
And we got a lot of people watching in London, Willie. But I do ask this
And the funny thing
question.
is, I don't think Joe is really pretending that much here, guys. You got to understand, these people are the ruling class. They are not used to people ever talking to them that way. They are not used to having a boss. We are proletariat. We all have jobs. We have bosses that talk shit to us all the time. People have authority that abuse their authority to us all the time. So these people in privileged positions, they legitimately are not used to people disrespecting them. That's why Joe Scarborough like, holy shit, Matt Gaetz is fucking dragging this guy. I can't believe he's taking it. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the chat because Joe acts a lot, but I really do think that he's perplexed here because he used to yelling at his secretary, at his assistant, sometimes Mika on the show. So, like, Joe is perplexed here. But imagine if we had a left where we talked to Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden the same way that Matt Gaetz talked to Kevin McCarthy. We should talk to the ruling class like they are fucking servants. Like the same way, we should treat politicians the same way that the bourgeoisie treats customer service workers when they get their order wrong. Like, you know how mad you get when someone fucks your order up? The politicians are constantly fucking our order up at all times. We should be dragging them at all times. That's why RBN is so fucking mean. You guys are like, oh my God, RBN, you're so mean to Marianne. You guys so mean to RFK. Some people mad that we mean Dr. Cornel West now. Treat these people the same way that they treat customer service workers for making simple mistakes. He calling out your minds, ladies and gentlemen. So this meltdown by Morning Joe is fantastic. I'll play some more of it.
It is not too early. You know, it's like almost noon in London.
Okay.
That's right.
And we got a lot of people watching in London, Willie. But I do ask this question, and I know maybe this means I'm an old man and I shouldn't talk this way, but I'm just going to talk this way, Willie. What kind of man would allow somebody talk to him publicly and bow down to him? I mean, I'll let continue. I don't teach, and forget about manhood, even though this is a question of manhood and masculinity. My daughter would never in a billion years. She's the toughest of the lot. She would never in a billion years allow somebody to talk to her that way. I'm sure your daughter, your son, we don't teach it. We wouldn't allow.
Guys, why do you think that is? I told you, these ruling class people, the idea of them being talked to like we're their boss completely is like abhorrent to him. He's like, I cannot believe this. Kevin McCarthy working for someone else? We supposed to tell other people what to do. You supposed to have people in lockstep. You supposed to be the head honcho, right? They are fucking in shambles because Matt Gaetz exposed and roasted Kevin McCarthy.
Our children to act that way. Who is Kevin McCarthy? And why does he allow anybody to talk to him that way? It's astounding that he is that weak and timid, and he's Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He's not a backbencher. He's the guy, in theory, running the party.
The thing is, you can say that Kevin McCarthy is weak all you want, but he's doing what he's doing because Kevin McCarthy and his wing of the party, with the vote that they have, remember the whole January House vote thing where Kevin McCarthy fell like 1,000 rounds before he got Speaker? They can call a motion to vacate in his House speakership whenever the fuck they want. If they feel like he's out of compliance. Can you imagine if we had that power over Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries, if AOC and Ilhan Omar did what literally the DSA said we should do? Enforce a floor vote on Medicare for all, let alone other issues. Demanding them to end the police state, ending wars. Other stuff that actually more serious. Medicare for all, ending corporate bailouts. I will advocate medical freedom, medical apartheid, censorship, forcing them to follow our direction or we will fuck you up. Democrats are not used to this because they are used to the CIA manufactured social democrat left. They are full of weak beta cucks like Tom Hartman, Sam Cedar, and the people that are nihilists, Cal Kalinske, Crystal Ball. They are here to cultivate a weak left. Emma Vigeland, Anna Kasparian, all of them. Oh no, we can't do Medicare for all. Oh no, what if it backfire? What if people get mad at us? Fuck out of here. But anyway, that's a funny meltdown. I want to get to my last story while I have time. I want to keep these around an hour, so I'm already over time. So let me read this story here. Another reason why to vote against Joe Biden. And there's an impeachment inquiry. This is based on what we were just covering. Joe Biden, in a rational society, in a sane society, would get impeached for this. In a sane society, Donald Trump would have got impeached for this instead of stupid Russiagate shit. Instead of Stormy Daniels porn star shit. Instead of the stupid shit that the Democrats did, they should have fucking impeached Donald Trump for stealing Syrian and Iranian oil illegally. Stealing Venezuelan gold illegally. I want you guys to understand, as our government, quote unquote, say they are against crime, we got to be hard on crime, right? Our government is ran by the biggest criminals, the biggest pirates. Look at this headline and look how they cover this up. The United States seizes nearly 1 million barrels of Iranian oil allegedly bound for China. The United States seizes 1 million barrels. You mean stole? You mean they're pirates? Fucking Joe Biden, the king of the pirates, fucking stealing oil for Iran. Millions of barrels. And look how the media covers it. Whenever the United States does something illegal, they say they seize Iranian oil. Stole Iranian oil. And once again, Iran, just like Russia and China, are forced to be the adults in the room. Because imagine the reaction of the United States. Imagine the nonstop wars that we will be constantly fighting if Russia, China, the DPRK, Iran, Venezuela, any country that we are told to hate for some reason. Imagine they just fucking stole U.S. oil all the time. Nigga, we'd be in World War III right now. There would be a war on terror all over the world. Meanwhile, Iran is supposed to take this. China, who this oil was supposed to go to, is supposed to just take this. But meanwhile, they want to demonize protesters. They're like, oh my God, look at the protesters. The protesters are looting. The people who are not, surely they're not agent provocateurs. Surely not that. Surely they're not feds. Surely they're not people who are just outside people in the movement. People outside the movement. They're looters. You're looters because you're upset over social injustice. Meanwhile, the United States loots all over the world. The United States loot billions of Afghan money. The United States seized Iranian oil. Do you guys know the United States steals 80% of Syrian oil? You guys know that? This is the country that fights for democracy, right? That was Ro Khanna believe. That was the Bernie Sanders left believe. Look at this jaw-dropping stat. And this is why my mind is completely decolonized. I'm not going to allow them to call my community criminals. I'm not going to allow them to justify having a police state on us when Joe Biden is the biggest war criminal psychopath in modern human history, the biggest eco-terrorist in modern human history. And I swear to God, guys, that is not hyperbole. When Joe Biden bombed the Nord Stream pipeline, he committed the biggest act of eco-terrorism in probably hundreds of years. And I'm being very generous here. Not only that, he funded multiple genocides. He's stealing oils like a fucking pirate. But Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball want you to vote for him. You know why? Because Kyle and Crystal, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and these people who are my enemy, who should be our enemy from this day. They're not the best we have. They're not the closest thing to the working class movement. They are enabling war criminals and corruption. People are about to vote for a guy that's stealing 80% of Syrian oil, stealing billions of dollars from Afghanistan, stealing Iranian oil. Our government is ran by psychopaths. But people still pushing lesser two evils. So just another example of the criminality of the United States government. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm trying to do these Nick Nights more often. Good to be back on Wednesday. I'm going to try to keep these to around an hour. I'll read a few of these super chats here that I saw came in. Thanks for the $5. Right side. Much love to you, RBN. Your voices help keep us common folks feel less alone in our observation of this corruption. Keep up the great work. And that's exactly why we wanted to get into this, because there was a giant lane where there wasn't a lot of working class voices, especially radical, black, unapologetically socialist and Marxist voices. You had a bunch of sock dams like Crystal and Kyle. Without the influence of RBN, you have so much liberal bullshit in this space that will go unchecked. Thank you for the $5. Give credit to Matt G. We're due and helping to protect Tara Reid. Thank you for the $5, Sarah. We got another one from 199 Date Boy. Debate Alex. Who the fuck is that guy? He looked weak by running away. So Alex, he wanted to debate me. He like, I want to debate you over your support of Dr. Cornel West. I'm like, I never endorsed Dr. Cornel West. RBN was very critical of Dr. Cornel West. He was like, I want to debate your uncritical support of Dr. Cornel West. I'm like, bro, we literally just ripped this man to shreds the last week. On one end, I have people who are upset in the Dr. Cornel West, camp. There are people upset at us because we covered them critically. And then you have people that are like, oh, RBN not critical. And we want to debate you because you're not critical of Dr. Cornel West. I want to debate you because you support Dr. Cornel West. I'm like, this debate is a waste of time. I'd rather debate imperialism. I'd rather debate capitalism, socialism, because the premise is off. Like, You want to know what happens if I accept that debate? He'll get here. He'll like, hey, I want to debate you because you support Dr. Cornel West. And my response is like, no, I don't. Then the debate's over. So that's why that debate has no fucking value. It's a random Twitter troll. He literally created like 3 YouTube accounts because I literally I triggered him so bad. I triggered him so bad. He created like 3 YouTube accounts to follow me here. Follow me and harass me on Twitter on a false premise. He also said I claim that we shouldn't talk about class. Fam, you watch RBN. When have I ever said we should not talk about class? That's an absurd argument. It's a waste of my time. I'd rather debate someone on U.S. imperialism. The same way I debated Destiny on whether the United States is a fascist country or not. I debated Robbie on the Hill on Venezuela. I'd rather debate anything of value rather someone's insignificant opinion on whether I'm a communist or not. It's funny because people will be like, oh, Nick a communist or not? I had people before, they were like, Nick, you're a communist. Why don't you call yourself a communist? I'm like, oh, it's not a big deal. Nick, why don't you call yourself a communist? Why you don't call yourself a communist, Nick? That was they used to tell me all the time back in the day. Then I'm like, okay, I guess I call myself a communist. The second I call myself a communist, they were like, oh my God, Nick, you're not a communist. I'm about to expose you. I'm like, nigga, you guys are the one who asked me to say it. I don't give a fuck if you think I'm a communist or not. I don't care if you think I'm a socialist. I don't care what you call me. I unapologetically advocate for my community, period. That's why people who don't like RBN does not rub me the wrong way at all. I don't care at all because we're not talking about sports. We're not talking about movies. You know what I mean? This is not a gaming podcast where we talk about different theories regarding gaming. This is not a pro wrestling. This is not a sports podcast. This is politics, fam. You're either on my side or get the fuck out of my way. There's no, oh, I want to appease you. Oh, I want to win you over. No, you either help us form RBN communities, form RBN chapters, form mutual aid. You help us fight the system in the war state, in the police state. We don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck if you don't like RBN. And that's clear, fam. That's clear. So thank you for letting me get that out my chest. I appreciate the super chat as well. We definitely do. If you guys want to debate something of use, I'm always down. U.S. imperialism, all this shit, current events, ideas. But you're like, I want to debate you because I think you have a position that you never actually said is a waste of my time. Fam. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Always love talking to you guys. Got another great comment from Middle Maga. I recognize your picture from Twitter. Great live. This was fire. Absolutely. Always fun to do a solo stream where I can go unhinged. I can go out crazy. You know what I mean? So anyway, hope you guys enjoy this. I think we got live streams tomorrow. Nick and I wish I could be on Savvy and JB show one day. But Savvy and JB show is next. Make sure you guys support us on Patreon. That's how we pay our workers, Aaron, and make sure everyone paid a fair labor value to help promote and RBN. You also can support the show in the description while the links help us keep going. Much love and much appreciation, all you guys. I'll be back. Have a good one.